Hello there and welcome to the live lounge at the Fastmarkets Middle East Iron and Steel event. Now, I'm Georgia Tolley and I'm delighted to say that joining me today is Yousef Al Sharif. He's a manager at Sharif Metals Group. They are, of course, a family-run business with a prominent role in the metals recycling industry right here in the UAE. Now, the firm was first founded back in 1963. It provides a fully integrated system throughout their recycling facilities, providing customers with exceptional commodities and services. And, of course, they focus on reducing their carbon footprint. Now, Sharif Metals has developed tremendously within the Middle East and covers procurement, processing and recycling of specifically non-ferrous metals. So the main items purchased and recycled in their facilities are various grades of copper, aluminium, zinc and nickel alloys. Yousef, it's a great pleasure to have you join us in the studio today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here and I'm looking forward to the interview.
Thank you very much. Now, you work for the family business. I know that your grandfather even worked in the metals industry. From a young age, were you often taken to the sites? Did your father teach you all about the industry, even, from when you were 4 or 5?
In the weekends, I would go to work with my father and I would learn about the business. It was an interesting time because I didn't know what's going on, and it was just like the yard was my playground almost, like I used to go there and I would touch all these different metals, try to understand what is this and what is that, and then I would essentially like learn bits and pieces from here and there, and I just always thought that this is normal for me, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I had to go to work with my father, and right now I feel like it paid off, because I understand a lot about these metals from a young age.
Yeah, it's almost sort of been part of, you learned your manners, your table manners, but you also learned about alloys at the same time.
Exactly, yeah.
So how did you in some ways, it must be even harder to know what formal education to take when you kind of know where you're going. Did you choose to go to university or did you dive straight in?
So I chose to go to university. It's not like university was something very, very essential for this industry because you can get into this business, but you just have to understand what part of the business you want to take, Like, for example, if you study accounting, then you definitely need to go to university for accounting because you have to understand the formulas, you have to understand many different things. But if you're negotiation, for example,
yes,
and stuff like that, it's like a trait. I think it's within you if you know how to negotiate. You can definitely learn how to negotiate, but I feel like it's something that's inside you.
So how did you prepare to join the company? What did you study, for example?
I studied business management and I studied psychology. But
that's interesting. You threw in a bit of psychology.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that earlier you mentioned the negotiation. Do you think psychology plays a part in the way you deal with other people successfully?
Yeah, definitely. Psychology plays a big role, and not just in business, but in your relationships with people. Like, you can understand your customers better when you have an idea about psychology, and you can use it to your advantage when it comes to negotiation. You can tell if the other person is bluffing or not, So it's a good thing. But I started learning the industry at a very young age. Like, I don't think university would have taught me 10% of what I learned on the field, because these things you have to learn, and especially me, I like to learn hands-on, I have to see the thing, I have to try it, I have to do it myself. And university doesn't really offer that type of things, except when you go for specific types of, what do you call them?
The sort of vocational courses. So I suppose if you go and do medicine, it's very hands-on.
Yeah.
But I did English literature.
Okay.
That basically meant I I lay on the sofa for about 3 years reading Dickens. I mean, literally, you look back on it, you're like, did that actually teach me how to do a job? Not really. Yeah.
Yeah, but some people learn from the book. Some people learn by reading and stuff. For me, it's just I have to do it myself to learn it, So I always did things myself, and from a young age, I would go from department to department. In the company, there's many different departments. Like you have accounting department, you have the sales, you have the purchase, you have documentation, you have the HR, you have IT. So all of these different departments are important. Each department plays a role, and I'm not an expert in all of them, but I have a very good idea of each department's role into making a company move in a smooth way, and make things coordinated, because everything is related in the end.
It's fantastic to hear that you've got that sort of grounds up overview. It sounds nonsensical, but grounds up overview of the whole company.
Yeah.
Obviously, as part of the new generation coming into work at the group, how are you hoping to make your mark? Do you have any particular innovations you're looking to introduce?
I feel like, in this new generation, there's a lot new technology coming in. Like, it's always improving, it's always getting better, and it's inevitable that we're going to have to use the new technology to further develop our business. Like, you have the AI stuff, going on, and that's very interesting. And you have cryptocurrencies, which is a new payment method. No need for banks, no need for intermediaries, and you just can deal, business to business, and it will save a lot of time, it will save a lot of expenses and stuff like that. So using AI, using blockchain technology, I think this is the future, and this is going to be implemented whether we like it or not, because if we don't get into these things, then we're going to be behind. So I feel like part of our role as a new generation is to see how we can use these things to develop our business. Like back in the early 90s, when there was no telephones, and then suddenly there was these big devices and stuff, and then slowly the internet was introduced. So that time there was a huge shift in the market and huge increase in communication, and faster communication leads to better business. So we just gotta see what works for us and how we can use it to our advantage.
So I have done about 20 interviews so far on this live lounge, and you're the first person who's mentioned the blockchain. And I imagine it's going to be very, very important for tracking materials, and tracking orders within your industry.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but it is interesting that you're the youngest person I've interviewed, guessing, but also you're the first person who's mentioned it. So there is this sense of a sort of generational shift potentially within the industry.
Yeah.
What challenges do you think the industry is facing at the moment? Because you've probably got quite a unique perspective on that.
I mean, the challenges that I see a lot of restrictions happening around the world, which is related to moving things from one place to another.
Yes.
Like specifically scrap, and especially in Europe and the Basel Convention and stuff. I think that's gonna make more challenges than it's going to make things easier, because now if you want to move specific material from one place to another, now you have to go through all of these processes, and you have to go through all of these requirements and stuff like that. But in the end, what we're trying to do is we're trying to recycle this material. We're trying to get this material to the right place so that we can recycle it. And it costs money, and if it's gonna be less feasible, then it's gonna be harder to recycle.
And yet the ultimate aim, I imagine, of most governments, in particular the European Union, is to increase the amount of recycling that's going on to improve the circular economy.
I mean, it's debatable. Maybe they're trying to do it for other reasons. I'm not sure, but
it feels like, I suppose, within the industry, it feels like more barriers are being put up rather than knocked down, and that must be frustrating.
Definitely, like even here in UAE now, when you export material, you have to pay a fee to the government, which makes it more costly, right? Because these end-of-life materials, like let's say that you buy a car or something, you pay a tax on it, right? But if you buy scrap, you pay tax on it as well. So it doesn't make sense because you already paid the tax on a car and it's now destroyed. You want to recycle it. So why would you pay another fee to help the environment, you know? I feel like it should be the other way around. If you're going to do something green and good for the environment and for the economy, then you should be paid for that, not to pay to do something good, you know?
Looking at the growth that's happening in the GCC, because we are seeing exponential growth compared to other regions, which are quite a lot of them are really quite struggling.
Yeah.
What's your view on the future of the region? How do you think the next few decades are going to shape the global recycling and metals industry with everything that you've just said, you know, those barriers in the back of our mind?
You know, the way that I see it right now is that the very big companies, the ones that have been well established, are going to continue to grow and they're going to continue to dominate the market. However, the new companies, the new people, new recyclers that are going to come in, they're going to face a lot of challenges because the market is not as easy as it was 20 or 30 years ago. Now the market is extremely challenging. Like you have these, for example, the technology, you know, it's making everyone aware of the prices like 24/7. You know, so if the LME goes up like $10, the supplier is going to be like, I need a better price. You know, as of back then, they had no idea what an LME was. And now with all these challenges and all these barriers and requirements and stuff like that, and the VAT and all these different things coming together, it's going to be more challenging, definitely. I can see that. But if you know what you're doing, if you know how to manage your company in a very efficient way, and you know your industry very well, then you will do good.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? This need to sort of add value because you can't squeeze as much out of what you're doing. Because it's really interesting. You mentioned there that the pricing and how immediate that is now and how that's changed. Obviously, well, I say obviously, I think it must sometimes be quite difficult coming in as a new generation into a very established family business. Who would you say has been your mentor? Who would you say has inspired you as a leader? Because, you know, looking into the future, you're likely to go on and become a leader if you remain within your family's company. But I guess you must have some sort of inspiration coming your way.
Yeah, the inspiration that I get is from my father. I mean, he's a great leader, he's a great father, and he definitely knows what he's doing, especially, you know, what he's already accomplished in his life. No one can doubt that. And I learned a lot about him. Other people learn from him, and he's my role model. So.
But he's also your father. Do you ever squabble?
I mean, I'm grateful to have my father as my role model.
Yes.
You know, because he's close to me. He's with me. He guides me, and you know, some people, they're not so fortunate.
That's true.
To have a mentor and a father in the same time, you know, because a father will always want the best for you, no matter what.
Yeah.
And if he's gonna mentor you in your business, then he's gonna want you to become better than him. So I feel very grateful for this, you know.
The relationship. I'm not going to manage to persuade you to say that you squabble. Okay, so finally, obviously the theme of this year's conference is Transform Tomorrow Together. And I have to admit, I am asking everybody at the event for their take on that sort of slogan. What does the phrase mean to you, and how would you like to see it influencing the future of your industry?
I mean, the way I see this, Transform Tomorrow Together, I feel like it's just positive and straightforward.
Yeah.
You know, we have to transform tomorrow together, obviously to the better, and we have to cooperate as different people, different cultures, different industries to do what's best for us and for humanity in the future. So, I mean, we're gonna transform tomorrow together by by collaboration. I think that's a good way to put it.
Really fascinating interview. Thank you very, very much for joining us here.
It's my pleasure.
At the Live Lounge. It's brilliant. I also got to interview your father on a few days ago, and that was absolutely fascinating as well. So now I've managed to pair the two. And a big thank you to all our Live Lounge listeners. And if you are listening later at home and you want to hear more interviews like that, please do remember you can subscribe to our podcast either via Amazon, Apple, or of course YouTube or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And to be sure to stay up to date on all our upcoming events and initiatives in the recycling and metals industries, just be sure to visit fastmarkets.com. In particular, check out our events page.